the intralife regression, I really feel was a way for me to demystify and unlock that potential that is still kind of buried by my own choices that's in my subconscious. It's really more about finding and making sure that you've got the right intention to begin with. It really all goes back to that. Like, what am I putting out to the universe as a whole, right? Because they say like the universe is a mirror.
Welcome to the Citrine Path, a space for healing, transformation, and authentic connection. Join us as we explore spirituality, energy, personal growth, and the journeys that shape who we are. Light the path within and step into the conversation. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Citrine Path. So, today we're finally getting to the episode that we've been teasing you all about for so long. So, I'm one of your co hosts, Amber.
And I'm your other co host, Patsy with Violet Elements.
And I'm so excited to say that we have Joe with On the Go Joe coming to join us today. So, Joe is a Holy Fire 3 Reiki practitioner, an aura reader, a survival and fire starting educator, and a Get Home Bag class instructor. So, thank you so much for coming on. I know you did one episode with us in season 1. And in that episode, we kind of talked all about the inside the mind of the survivalist, talking a little bit about your backstory. So I'm excited to get into more of the spiritual side of your life in this one. So do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself real quick?
Survivalist for sure, like all of that stuff, everything that you just said. I think for this conversation, like the why I've decided to, I guess, kind of merge the two, is I've spent my whole life kind of seeking, like trying to figure out who I'm supposed to be. And one of my one of the things that I've always been seeking is a mission. And I really feel that bringing survival and preparedness and uh, bringing survival and preparedness along with Reiki and mindfulness and really connecting with your environment and connecting with people. Um, I think that one of the things we've lost sight of as a people is community. And if I can use Reiki and survival, preparedness, all that kind of stuff, like camp craft, wilderness craft, that kind of stuff. I want to use that to be able to bring different crowds together. A lot of people hear preparedness and survival, and some people like automatically assume you're just some like crazy tinfoil hat dude, which I guess in some ways I kind of qualify for that. But I think that there's a whole substrate to reality that if we point that out a little more, um, I think it would help people connect better and connect to their environments better.
Yeah, and that's one thing that, Mom and I kind of talked about on our last episode is, over the last little bit of time since we've been doing this podcast, we found a little bit more of, like our tribe, and our group of people that have very like mindsets of us. And that's one thing I'm really excited about having this podcast and bringing it back for season 2 is being able to find more people who have the same mindsets as us and to create our own little community because I think you're extremely right that, it can feel really lonely sometimes, especially in this world where we have social media and we have all the World Wide Web. I think we're using that too much instead of face to face contact and socialization.
Right. Yes, exactly.
The big thing that I want to talk about with you today um, is your interlife regression that you had with me. So, what was something that really made you open and wanting to do your interlife regression?
As you and Mom were going through the healer's course, the intuitive healer course, and I remember her talking about that and kind of my own past with um, seeking spiritual wisdom, I guess, spiritual knowledge. Um, I've made a I've made a real attempt at making a real practice of doing silent meditation, just kind of like really strong mindfulness in the mornings, in the evenings before I go to bed. If I find any like quiet time that I can capitalize on, I spend a lot of time just making myself put down the distractions and like look at myself and look at my life and my choices and my people. And the intra-life regression, I really feel, was a way for me to demystify and unlock that potential that is still kind of buried by my own choices that's in my subconscious. Does that make sense? Kind of diving inside myself to find myself is really the way that I thought about it.
Yeah, I think that's amazing. Yeah. Do you have any questions you want to ask about that, Mom?
So we kind of went over the last episode of what an inner life and past life regression was. But from you going into it, I mean, you've kind of had a knowledge of it. Was it what you expected it to be?
In some ways, yes. I think there was a very childish part of my imagination that just wanted to see something like amazing and mystical. And in that sense, it definitely lived up to what I thought it would be like. The experiences I had with with myself and with my spirit guides was very that was unexpected. Like the kind of like the information that I got, but the sensory experience of it was everything I thought it would be and more. That I can still like, even looking back on it now, just talking about it, I can really like I can hear the water, energy, life force, gravity, whatever you want to call it. Like I can still hear that, um, from the time when I actually like sank down and was down inside like the cave area, and there was I can still like I hear that when I want to. I can. It's something that I use quite frequently now to like come back and center myself. Um, and then the other part that I didn't expect was the other half of it was like the information. I really went into it looking for like, am I going to be a healer or am I going to be a protector? Like which one? And that was kind of my default mindset going into it. And then during like it really kind of dawned on me that it wasn't that I was choosing one path or the other. It was learning to balance like the two sides and the two things that I love, like, and that I'm good at.
No, I think that's really cool that you are able to use that sound as an anchor for you now to like help bring yourself back. And like use it as a grounding moment. I think that's super fascinating and super cool. Like I think that's a great way to show like how you can continue to use this experience um in your everyday life.
Absolutely, absolutely. The visuals of it all, the clear, like the transparent magnetic energy, the brightness of the colors, like all of that is very much part of the memory. But that sound, I mean, if I ever was to find a piece of property and the creek or river or whatever running through it, if it sounded at all similar like that sound that I remember, um, I, I'm 99% sure I would want to buy the property. Like, because it it's kind of the reason that I chose the spiritual path I did, is because that felt like home. Um, a lot of my spiritual seeking, I tried Christianity for a while. I, tried like Zen Taoist type traditions. I've been very, very anchored in like Nordic kind of lore in spiritual path. But the one thing that I've always maintained is that like I would never go tunnel vision on one thing, because there's so much that when you talk about God and gods and divine and creation and destruction and all that whole cycle, I really think that a lot of people get way too myopic. And me having that kind of broad sense, I think helped me to navigate the hypnosis itself a lot better.
That's super cool. So after coming out of this interlife regression, do you think that having this experience has changed the way you think of religion or like skewed that in any way?
I think it's confirmed it um, more than anything. Kind of, my own personal beliefs, and like what I project as my own reality. I think it really helped me um, to integrate more of who I am completely as a person into my path. That I'm kind of carving through this reality, or whatever whatever you want to call it. Um, it's really helped me be much more present, which in turn has led to just much more innate joy. It's helped me be much more present, which has led to much more joy. And my need, I've spent so long in like kind of rigid structures, with like my job and my like the security stuff and all that, and which really led to I wouldn't say being addicted, but relying on like being in control of situations and being in control of conversations and that kind of thing. And this has definitely helped me see all of that from a different perspective. I don't think, we all change, and we all have like moments where like you can feel like perceptible shifts and change in your reality, in your personality, in your experience overall. And that the way that that message was delivered to me was profound, but it was also um, very to the point, very simple. Like it wasn't very dressed up, and sometimes like I look at it and I think, well, I think all the lights and the lighting and the glowing plants and the temple and the cave and like all that stuff, I start to look at it like, was that just like my mental projection, or was I actually like really on, say, another plane, maybe like a microcosm, something that exists that only my subconscious can see, kind of thing. um Yeah. Yeah, I still have dreams about being inside and seeing like the white marble and the lines running through it. Usually, when I have that dream, my other dream that I have behind that is usually very vivid. And I was telling mom about this one. I had one that stuck with me the other day. I remember seeing like that light and kind of like that sheen of the light coming off of that marble. And then I was like standing on a hilltop basically, and it was forested, and there was a golden retriever by my side, like it just a golden retriever. And I looked down and I could see like this like farmhouse, and I could see all of you down there, like you and Jake and all the babies and mom, and like the other dogs were like running around you guys. It was just like it felt it felt like I found it. I don't know where it was, or what place necessarily it is, but um, I feel like that. I wouldn't call it prophetic, but I would say that it was maybe like a glimpse of one of the possibilities that lie ahead of us.
So, Mom, you're kind of looking at this from the other side of from where we have experienced the situation. Dad was talking about he's able to feel more joy and stuff now, and kind of release some of the control. Have you noticed that in him since this inner regression?
I wouldn't necessarily say from what I've noticed that it was such a huge shift, because I always have seen the more like sensitive, emotional side of him. But I think now he's a little bit more relaxed about that in general, which kind of goes back to he always portrayed as the like strong military soldier type personality, stance, attire, like all of that when he was out in public. And I think that's relaxed a little bit. And he's kind of seeing the side of he could be strong and be protective and be all of that without violence being the first like solution if something comes up. So I would say that has probably been the biggest shift that I've noticed. But with that, I could see where it could be more like peaceful and calming to him, because if he's not thinking that all the time and using that as the only solution he has in his toolbox to get out of a situation, that by itself has to be a big relief. And then, like pulling in all the other energy work and the aura rating and all of that stuff, being able to look at somebody on that level and seeing that side of a person versus like, oh, how dangerous are they? Do they have a weapon? And looking at it that way, I think has also been a big shift and change.
Yeah, and I think that is a super cool way to look at it too. Like not only being able to physically see them, but having a deeper connection to see them energetically. Do you think that that has in heightened since your regression, Dad?
Definitely. It's easier for me. So kind of the basics of like aura viewing 101 is you want to have somebody, about 6 to 10 feet away from you and about 18 inches off of like a plain white background. So like anytime you see somebody like near a beige wall or a white wall or something, yellow, something like that, some light color, neutral is usually best. If you just kind of like focus and you act like you're looking through them, that's when you start to see the kind of base of the aura that, kind of follows your body line. Um, I think in some cases, like if I see something or somebody who's like very interest color wise and they're very like very strong, because not all auras shine as bright, or some are dimmer, fuzzier, some are sharper. Um, and sometimes I think like when I see somebody like that, I tend to like stare a little bit, and I've noticed that it's made some people kind of uncomfortable, because there's this big bearded dude like just staring at you with this weird blank expression on his face. So, um, but I think in a lot of ways, it's also helped me see that it's kind of a good and a bad thing, but it's kind of helped me see how people react to their environment better. Um, like, and I've always been sensitive to like the energy in a room my whole life, and I guess that's gotten um, a little more dialed in, I guess you could say. But I think I had a kind of a narrow scope on what I was reading from people before this, and now that I can see auras a little more without trying quite so hard, without trying to like focus in on that specific aspect, I think that it's kind of widened my view a little bit on people. Um, instead of looking at them like, am I like in the security officer, correctional officer, like point soldier point of view, I'm looking at them more just raw as a human.
That's really interesting. And like I know when you first came out of your regression, you like barely look at me because you said that my aura was shining so bright, like you could barely even look in
Yes.
my direction.
Yeah.
I think
You
it
were
was
like the
very,
sunshine, like it was golden. Like you were like, if anybody else would have seen it, you probably could have started a cult. Like I'm just saying.
see, and I always say, like, we've made jokes about starting a church and stuff so we didn't have to pay taxes and all that stuff. And I always say we're like 2 seconds away from being considered a cult as it is. Like, we don't need no help with any of that. So, for people who may not know what an interlife regression is, how, in your words, would you explain it?
So an interlife regression is, so I would say the easiest and quickest way to kind of get people started on the path, would be to say that imagine closing your eyes and looking straight down into your core. So if you look at it from a scientific point of view, right, humans have auras because we have electromagnetic frequency or energy that comes off of us. Well, so the EMF that's produced by your brain and the EMF that's produced by your heart are two separate fields. So they co-align, right? most of what your aura is that you see is what's being emanated from your heart, right? Some people think, core. Some people look a little deeper down here in the solar plexus area for, what they consider their core. But for me, having you there to guide me and just kind of like keep me just gently on track and keep me focused enabled me to relax enough that I was able, and that's kind of felt like that I was looking into my core, that I was diving with, into myself, and I was doing my absolute best to do it with zero expectation, right? I wasn't trying to war game or figure out what was going to happen. I wasn't trying to direct or like guide the experience any one certain way. Um, I just felt so relaxed and so open to myself as a divine being and like the rest of reality at the same time. So, I mean, yeah, that's what you're doing, you know, and people, they call it hypnotism or regression, but you as the facilitator, you were there to basically just supply that environment for me to do the work that I needed to do in order to take myself into that level of my reality. Subjective when you're talking about that stuff. Um, but I wouldn't even say down, but just looking into your core. Like, what's, how much time have you spent looking at the deepest levels of like your thought patterns and your subconscious and the love that you feel and the gratitude that you feel and all the other emotions that are just kind of like mixing in with that.
No, I love that explanation of it. I think that's really cool.
Yeah. So I know you were talking a little bit and you were talking about castles and the marbles and stuff like that. So I would assume when you're talking about that, that's what you saw during your regression. So was your perspective of it, was it like a movie? Were you like somewhere where you were like seeing it? Was it like first person, third person? Like, what was it on your side to experience it? And please
So,
don't feel obligated to show details of it if you don't want to.
oh no, I mean, I don't think there's anything that I need to hide from it. Nothing that I certainly feel that should be hidden. So first person is like seeing it from my eyeballs, like as if they were the camera, right? Like I can't see myself. So, and then third person is like you're like seeing yourself in the frame kind of thing, from what I understand. Am I right in that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
So it started out very first person. Um, and I hate to reference video games, but it's kind of a good description where like if you're ever in like a first person video game and you're doing whatever, like you pull out a knife and like you see your hand come up and you can like see the knife in it. Or so it was very first person in that aspect. Like I could see everything in front of me, and everything just kind of started to form around me, kind of out of the mist. Um, it was very, it was very woodland, very jungle esque, you know, and the walls, the marble looking kind of walls, all of that, like everything that looked like carved or had a defined line on it. I would say it felt semi permanent at best. And I really think that I think in a way it was kind of my brain showing me, or my guides, maybe, my higher self showing me like just how temporary, and malleable reality is. As real as that cave felt and as real as the water felt, like I can still remember when I sank up to my chest as I was like going down through, and they were just telling me, deeper, deeper, deeper. And I could feel that. I can still like recall that sensation on my chest. It's one of the, probably one of the 10 safest places I've ever experienced in my entire life. There was a lot of room for self reflection, but there was also a lot of room for self forgiveness. And I think that's what made it so peaceful.
So when you were,
Did I answer that whole question?
yeah, so when you were in it
Okay.
experiencing, you had visual and audio, right? You were
Absolutely.
seeing it and hearing it like a
Visual.
dream type state.
Well, it was a little more profound than a dream. um, I could feel I could feel the temperatures on my skin. I could feel the air current like moving. So it was almost like when people talk about like lucid dreaming or something like that. It was very much like in that state. It felt as if that reality was superimposed upon the one that I'm used to. I mean, it was there was a hint of impermanence about it, like that whole malleable thing, but it was so vivid and so real. Um, like the water on my chest, and hearing and like seeing the water consciousness like flow past with no real like defined entry or exit, just kind of through. I mean, I guess if somebody, I've never really lucid dreamed before. I've had really, really intense dreams, but I would say that this specific experience was more real and more substantial than any dream I've ever had.
If somebody was interested or curious of doing an inner life or past life regression, but was nervous or skeptical, what is some advice that you would give them before their session?
I think the first piece of advice to know is that you are absolutely and completely in control. And I think that's where a lot of people have a lot of fear about it. Maybe for me, I think there was a little bit of fear. Like I was kind of scared of what I was going to find, especially when I came up, like when it came to interacting with my shadow self. There was a definite interaction there. So I was a little uh, almost scared of what I would, hear or find or experience from that. Beyond that, like you're going to have some doubt and you're going to have some uncertainty because it's an experience you've never had before. Just the fact that you're willing to entertain the idea, I think is enough evidence for you to say like, well, if I'm obviously entertaining this and I'm considering this as, a way to improve my life or my state of mind or my spirituality or whatever it is, like you've already kind of stepped over that line. And no matter how far you keep going with it, you're always going to remain in control of your own consciousness. And I think that's the biggest fear that people will have is, what if somebody can like reprogram my consciousness or make me do something that, I wouldn't normally do, and none of that is there. As immersed as I was in everything, as real as it all felt, I knew that if I wanted to, I could pull myself back out at any time.
So, do you believe that this experience has changed your spiritual practice or your daily practice?
Absolutely. Yeah. Um, absolutely. More on an internal, I think, somewhat on an external. I used to view it as something that had to be very formal. Like, so let's say like me pulling one of my cards or like, you know, using my runes or something like that. Um, it's become less formal for me now, I guess. Like, I really think that the amount of concentrative aids that you're going to use, candles, medallions, cards, stones, whatever they are, I really think that one of the things this taught me is that there is no prescribed right or wrong way to do this. Um, I have been able to find like intense moments of connection and peace without some of the aids, without some of the concentrative aids. And I would say that overall, the biggest lesson I learned from it was that whatever I do on the outside, like whatever I project to my family and my loved ones, um, whatever, spell or ritual or whatever I'm doing, like it's really more about finding and making sure that you've got the right intention to begin with. It really all goes back to that. Like, what am I putting out to the universe as a whole, right? Because they say like the universe is a mirror. So what is my energy? If I wake up and I feel like, I'm worried about money or I'm worried about whatever it may be, like, um, the way that it's really influenced my daily practice is when I have those thoughts, when I have those emotions, when I'm feeling very like anxious or intense or like short patience, um, it's much easier for me now to pull that back and think about, why I'm having that thought. And a lot of it has come down to letting go of control. Like there's only so much that I can control, you know? Um, so, and I really think that that changes my overall vibration. It allows me to live in peace and um, really live and experience being abundant, um, even if some of the evidence that I'm looking for to prove that to me hasn't shown up yet, right? But it will. Um, but there's so much right in front of my face that I just wasn't seeing before. And that's been very grounding for me, very grounding.
So one thing I think is really cool about your regression is like almost the immediate impact it had on you from when you first came out. Um, one thing, like, so can you talk a little bit about the caffeine situation with it?
Yes. Um, so caffeine was caffeine was such a crutch for me, like a massive, massive, massive crutch, a bad habit for sure. And um, I was really struggling with letting go of that. Um, I think it became such a piece of my day and a piece of my personality that I almost had to like figure out who I was without that. Um, and after the hypnosis, after the regression, uh, it really felt like I was able to just put that down. Like it wasn't like such a big deal anymore. It wasn't something that I was focusing on. And instead of focusing on like I need, I want caffeine or whatever it is, like I want an energy drink or instead of focusing on that, um, I was able to focus on like more important things, like um, more present things, right? Do I really need the caffeine? Like, what time of day is it? Is it 4 o'clock in the morning and I'm on my way to work, or is it like 6 o'clock in the afternoon? And any sane person doesn't have any business drinking an energy drink, right? Um, and it really helped me to just kind of move past that whole uh, almost ritual that I developed around caffeine in my daily.
And that was all kind of a byproduct of the regression. Like I didn't even try to hypnotize it away from you or do anything like that, but
Right,
I think you going through this experience, you like raised your vibration from it, and it almost became like, it would, I don't know, like you raised your vibration so you didn't need it. Like it wasn't something you were in the same
right,
realm of. Um,
right.
and then can you talk about the music a little bit?
The music. Um, so a lot of my music choices, and I still like some of that. Um, so one thing that I was told during the interlife regression is that I needed to, I needed to listen to different music. Like I needed to give up some of that, some of those, like some of my playlists, I guess you could say, because in a way, a lot of those different like energies and lyrics and things in those songs were kind of a low key way of me kind of hanging on to some of that past trauma, right? Uh, like experiencing those emotions and stuff again, um, but not for any real like constructive purpose. It was almost like I needed to like fill my reality with something, so that's what I used. Um, and I've definitely been able to pin down um, a lot of different like artists and genres and stuff that I really, really enjoyed. that really gave me like kind of like almost like excited kind of feeling. But transitioning away from those lyrics and specifically those frequencies that are in some of those in some of that music, and choosing to listen to like raw frequency music, also like more instrumental type music, getting away. So basically, the message that was given to me was those those songs, that music that you rely on. A lot of those are really just bad spells, right? Because what are words, right? Words are intention and then put out. Um, so, when people talk about like magic and alchemy and that kind of thing, like that's what words are. And some like some of those, the lyrics and stuff, especially like me, because I love to sing horribly to the radio when I'm by myself in the car. Um, and like living the emotions of those lyrics, right? Like you're experiencing those emotions kind of. Um, and your subconscious brain doesn't know that that's a song. It just knows that you're experiencing this emotion of like fear, anger, heartbreak, or like whatever it is, right? Um, and in an effort to be more present and to be um, more even keel, right? Like it's cool to have a high vibration, and I definitely feel better living in this high vibration. Like my body hurts right now, my legs hurt, and my abs kind of hurt, but it's for good reasons, like good things that I did. So, but living in that higher vibration, sometimes when I hear those songs, like if I'm flipping through my playlist and I hear some of those songs, there's songs where I go, oh no, no, not that one. Like, no, not that. So it's been a lot of like, much to Christian chagrin, it's been a lot of like instrumental jazz and like medieval fantasy music from YouTube, and like solfeggio frequencies, and that just, I feel like I'm more present, and uh, I'm more present and I'm more aligned with the reality that I need to be aligned with in order to get to where I want to go. Does that make sense? So, it kind of like, I wouldn't call it control, but it definitely keeps me on track, keeps my mind in the right space.
To give our listeners a little bit more insight of like what his music is now, imagine a like background thing at a spa or something that shows a fireplace crackling with snow around in the winter or the fall, and the music that goes to that. That's what he's talking about. It went from like not necessarily heavy metal, but sometimes rap, sometimes popular songs now, to that like background spa with a crackling fireplace music. Um, so it was kind of interesting, a big shift, even to where we had to switch streaming services for music because the one that we had didn't necessarily cater to that and didn't have that type of songs on there. So even stuff like that, like, has changed it to like, oh, well, we got to switch to this other one because we don't even want, like, that's not even a thing that we need anymore. So, I mean, it's been stuff like all across the board, almost every aspect of like our daily life has shifted.
That's super crazy. So when I did the regression, I recorded all of it and then, set it to where dad could watch it whenever he wanted to. And I know you got to sit along and kind of listen to it because you didn't even know that we were really doing this. We just kind of told you the next day, hey, by the way. So when you listened to the recording with him, like, what was your thought process? What happened for you?
Well, my first part of it was I was asking a lot of questions because I was like, well, because like as it's going, and I'm like, well, who's all there? Who's that's talking to you? Like, so for everybody that doesn't know, when we were doing this for Joe, anyways, Amber was guiding and facilitating it, and she asked questions. And so sometimes Joe asked questions and then responded to his own question. And then sometimes Amber asked questions and then he responded. What started to get a little trippy for me, because I wasn't there and I didn't know all of it, and they already knew the outcome because, they experienced it firsthand. So their anticipation and like side glancing me, waiting for to see my reaction to it, was the difference in the voice is what first caught me. And I was like, what the heck? Who else is there? Who was that? And to get the response of, no, it was just me and Amber. Like, that was the thing that I was like, what? Like, no. And then, like, as it progressed and multiple voices came through, that was the part that I was like, what? Wait, no, wait, like, go back. Like, so that was kind of like, even though I'm has experienced this and done this for clients and stuff, it just goes to show that everybody's experience is going to be a little bit different. And that depending on what you're working through and what you're seeking, your experience is going to be different as well. So to be a part of it on the back end of it and not facilitating, that was the first time I got to experience it from that side of things. And then just to like clarify that a little bit, when Joe was responding and his spirit guides, higher self, who like it depended on at different points who he was speaking to or who he was asking this guidance and these questions for, his voice changed. And it wasn't just a like, oh, I'm going to talk lower voice. It was his normal voice, a little bit, I would say, quieter, a little bit more meeker than normal when he was asking the questions. But when he responded to himself, he had a very fast cadence speaking voice. It was a little bit grabbier and deeper, almost like a smoker sound, and a different accent when he responded to himself. And then as it went, at one point, a more feminine voice came out of Joe when he was responding to himself. And so that was the part that was like kind of the wow factor for me. And then to hear their conversation of all three of them going at once was wild. And then at one point, Joe started sneezing. And then for him not even to really recall that he was sneezing in it afterwards was kind of wild. The whole thing was just wild. Like, it was super fun to not facilitate it and watch it from the other side. So that was, because like from the other side, I'd be like, oh yeah, well, you can look at more of a scientific thing because you're like doing your job and you're helping the client. And like this, I didn't have that role. So I was just there as supportive spouse, supportive mother on your side, and like just watching you do your craft, which was, I'm in awe of by every time anyways. So just to see how far you've come as a facilitator from where you started a year ago to now, to be able to facilitate this and do it and then be professional about it, because it is your dad that you're doing it on. And some of the stuff that he said was kind of out there, but to be like, oh yeah, I'm in this as a facilitator and continue to do it. I was pretty impressed because I probably would have been a couple times like, what'd you say? Explain that, like you want to step in as the spouse or the protector, and like get more clarity on it. Instead, you were just third person bystander doing your job, so the whole thing was just wild. It was so cool, so interesting.
Well, thanks, Mom. I think my head just got 3 times bigger than it was already. Appreciate that. I think it was super interesting because you're right, like he is my dad. So I did have that moments of sometimes, there was moments where he was like walking into a cave. He's like, "Hey, I'm just gonna sink down into the earth." The part of me wanted to stop him because I was worried. I like it ended up being that that's what he needed to do. And I love the point that you made, Dad, at one point in time, that your brain will never put you into a spot where you will be in danger. Um, and I know during your regression, that's something that I say to you to make sure you're aware of it, but it was also something I was saying to myself at that point in time. Um, just to kind of bring myself back to center. Um,
Right.
so because when you first came out of the regression, I kind of told you and said, like, that was crazy. Um, and kind of explained it a little bit to you, but you couldn't understand what I meant when I said your voice changed. How
Hmm.
did you feel hearing those different voices in the recording after the fact?
It was kind of like there was this real, I don't know, like I don't know, 6-year-old me was like, whoa, you know, like just oh my, my goodness, just that whole wide-eyed like, can't believe this just happened. Um, I've dedicated a lot of time and energy in my life to connecting spiritually, energetically, um, with people I love, um, and just with like my environment as a whole, because like ever since I was younger, I've kind of been able to feel, like, read between the lines of reality, feel the energy kind of confluences and such, and hearing hearing my shadow self, that deep, gravelly. I don't even know if I could do the voice right now. Like, um, it was just like, um, there was a lot of apprehension, and there was a lot of um, judgment on my part that was absolved, from that. Kind of like, uh, I heard something the other day, and it said, you know, if there's one thing that people don't apply to their life enough, and that is to be wildly and fantastically forgiving of yourself. And that is something I could never do, um, and on certain levels, I guess. But on really important levels, that is something I could never do. And now that's not the case. Um, am I still capable of doing bad things and making stupid decisions? Of course. Like I still have my inherent ability to break shit. Like it's just part of who I am. I think understanding my deeper and darker motivations, I think understanding those and really knowing that part of myself, because I always viewed like that shadow part of myself as like very self-destructive. And, that was a judgment, right? Due to my own apprehension and my own, like, not knowing myself well enough. And a lot of that is gone. And now, like, I was listening to the recording of it a little bit earlier, when I was walking around the church doing security, and listening to it today felt like felt like I was hearing from a wise relative, versus, my shadow self, right? Kind of the way I used to look at it. So, uh, and then hearing the, so I remember that she was my mother in another life, maybe lives. Definitely like my female, spirit guide. And I really feel like, well, I can look at it two different ways, right? So the first way I looked at like my feminine kind of parts of my personality, like Mom said, right? She's seen the emotional, like, teddy bear side of me, like the insecure kid. Like, Mom sees that more than anybody else. I really think that my softer side, that the softness that I could display up to this point, I think was very limited because I looked at that feminine or that weaker side of me as somehow weak, um, which is entirely not the truth at all. Uh, one thing that was really focused during this whole thing was finding balance, right? So I really think that I want to call her Hannah. I don't know why. It just kind of like popped in my head today when I was listening to it. Um, so so Hannah for me, um, by her own words, was my mother in another life, maybe in lives. But I really think that she's been my feminine guide, my softer side, and being able to have that experience with those two very different sides of me, has really helped me put a lot more in perspective. Like I am moving towards being more of a healer. But in my haste to kind of like move that direction, right? Because that's just kind of how I am. Like, hey, like new path, squirrel. I'm that way. Um, and at first, it was very much like that. But after kind of reviewing that and using like the sound of that water to center myself, um, has enabled me to look at, um, less of me. Like, I'm not worried about losing that warrior, protector, provider part of me because it's permanent, right? It's there. And just because I lean into more of the healing aspect, and I channel more of that feminine energy, um, I think by doing that, and you know, I'm not going to lose the other half of me. And viewing that feminine, more healing, restorative, um, side of me, now I view that part of me as an equal instead of like something that I have to hide, right? I feel like I can be more empathetic, more sympathetic, and I feel like I can be more open with my emotions and how I'm feeling to a lot more people in my life, which hasn't always been the case.
So when you came out of the regression,
Mhm.
um, for me it was really intense because like for a second I thought I broke you. Um, and I really had to bring you back down to earth, right? So when you
Yeah,
first opened your eyes and came back, like how were you feeling? Like what was happening?
I felt very heavy, um, and not like bad heavy, and not like overwhelmed heavy, but I felt like I think I kind of lost track of the space I was occupying in reality for a little bit, like physically. Um, and then the other part was I was just so full of energy. I felt like I don't know if you remember seeing it in my face, but I felt like somebody had just like turned on a generator and plugged me into it. I was just like, whoa. And I opened my eyes and I saw the ceiling and stuff, and I could still kind of hear their voices. And like I knew you were there, and I looked over at you, and you were just like, whoa, you know? Um, it definitely, so it's something I want to do again. Not because of that feeling, but just simply because I feel like there's more I could learn. Um, I also came out of that just knowing, like as soon as I opened my eyes, I was like, I need to do a soul retrieval. And I've said it to mom, a couple times. And I really think that's probably one of my next steps is doing a soul retrieval. Yeah, just like I was just so energized and I was so like ultra present. And I remember looking at you, and it was just like this glow. It was like somebody had a giant spotlight like right back here behind you, and you were just golden. Like it was insane. Um, and then immediately like we got up and went outside, and it was like sitting down on the ground, like just trying to ground myself, um, trying to like pull myself back to that physical reality, or to our physical reality. Like mom has told me a few times, and I've heard this a few times too, is like, that other world is only a couple inches away, right? That other reality is only like a couple inches away. Sometimes it's almost like I can feel that, that kind of veil, that curtain. It's weird. Um, maybe that's just another decision that leads down another path that could, potentially like, is another reality. Um, but I'm more in tune with the little things that most people don't notice in their day to day.
When you first came out, like your energy was off the charts crazy.
It was.
And yeah, I
Yep.
remember just seeing the look on your face. I'm like, hey, let's go outside, take your shoes off, go lay down in the grass. Like we need to get you back here. And I'm super glad that, it's almost like my practitioner, like just mine just like kicked in and I had like go and grab crystals and got my forks and like started working on your root chakra and like bringing you back here. Um,
Right.
it was pretty interesting to see, you know, to see that shift instantly. So we got 5 questions that we're gonna ask every Citrine Path guest. Are you ready for them?
Okay. Go.
Okay. So what does walking your path mean to you?
Walking my path to me means staying true to what I feel is right and wrong. For me, walking my path is always keeping in mind that there's another perspective to everything that you're experiencing, or to people that you're experiencing. Sometimes your old protective habits, those habits you formed, um, sometimes those protective habits do you more damage, and is moving forward with my life the way I choose. But at the same time, walking my path also for me involves a lot of letting go of control, of the need to control things that are outside my circle, right? Outside my influence. Um, and I think for me, that's where I'm going to find my true path, right? That presence, um, and just allowing the world reality around me to do whatever it's going to do, and like making sure that I'm following my true north, right? Making sure that I'm true to my family, making sure that, that I'm checking on the people that I care about, um, making sure that I'm taking time every day to have, even if it's just 30 seconds, making sure that I have that time every day where it's just quiet and I can converse with me, right? I can do that self check in. Also, I think that's why mom and I work so well, is I'm like, like fireball in the sky, like, hey, let's go to Wyoming. Cool, I'm in. As much as I want to be that fireball in the sky, I'm like, let's go. Like, let's do this, right? There's that whole other side that I've not been able to do very effectively, which is grounding myself, right? And taking the necessary steps in between, and it depends on which way on that scale you go, right? And there's a million other scales that are personality and beliefs and everything else. And I think one of the biggest things about walking your path or walking my path, walk the path where you feel at home, right? Home is that feeling of like, it's normal, it's balancing, it's good, right? It fills me with light and support and enables me to become a better person, whatever that is, right? If it's a religion, then it's a religion. If it's not a religion, that's fine too. Stay true to that, regardless of how weird it seems, regardless of how off the wall you might think it is. Stay true to that. And if you just keep walking through, it's kind of like walking through a waterfall. Um, if you're walking your path and you feel like you're about to walk through a waterfall and you're not really sure what's on the other side, but you've got this like really like kid like ambition and joy about it, don't let yourself stop yourself. Keep going. Take those next steps. Like walk through that waterfall. Because what you're going to see on the other side is probably going to be nothing like you thought it was going to be. The more that you're authentic, the more that you're authentic, thankful, present, the more your reality is going to bend to your will instead of being something that's going to happen to you.
I love that. So you mentioned grounding. What's your favorite grounding practice right now?
Stand in the bare dirt, grass. I think like, our backyards, our front yards, that's still earth. That's still like you can still feel grounded out there. Like if you have distractions like traffic and neighbors and dogs and like that kind of thing, like, there's no way to wash that out or wipe that out unless you just put on headphones, and just do like white static or Soflago frequencies or something like that. But I think that, grounding in your yard is really great to do anytime where you can, like, your hands or your feet, right? Like one of the two. Like earlier, I was feeling very, very, very sore and very tired. My feet and my lower legs and my hip were just so overwhelmed. And I just stopped and I went over and sat down on the curb. And I couldn't take my shoes off, right? Because I'm like an armed security guy at a church. Like, maybe most likely nothing's going to happen, but I need to be able to respond if something does happen. So I had this overwhelming urge to take my shoes off and take my socks off and just stand in the grass, but I couldn't. So I just sat down on the curb and put my hands in the grass. Like, that's enough. Like, that's enough to ground yourself. Um, but I will say that I feel like there's a major difference between grounding in your front yard or your backyard and being out in the woods. I think they're both effective, but I just feel like the more connected you are to the earth and the less of the modern structural world that you have in your view and in your entire experience, I think that allows you to better connect with the earth and really like feel those roots take effect, which allows you to balance yourself, like balance your energy, balance your chakras, all of that.
So, what is one lesson the universe keeps teaching you?
I could have been nicer. I can always be a little more forgiving and to try to see myself similar to the way that those that love me see me. I really think that's important. That's definitely something that's come back around a million times.
Yeah, that one. Yeah, that I get that one last one too. All right, current life mantra or affirmation.
I've said it to Mom. I've said it to Ben. I've said it to a few other people. I used to get wrapped up in like, I need this much money, or I need this much property, or I need this, or I want that, or I want time and location freedom. That is, however that happens, right? I'm comfortable with that. I will let the universe provide because every time that I've done that so far, it's always worked out in my favor. So that's kind of my mantra right now, right? If it doesn't bring me time and location freedom, then why am I doing it? That doesn't mean that I shouldn't be doing whatever it is, right? Maybe there's reason, maybe there's another good reason, to support that, or another good reason that I should be doing that. But my mantra, like my kind of like my sole focus, I guess I would call it, is time and location freedom.
So, what is your favorite crystal,
Hmm.
card deck, or spiritual tool you're currently using?
So the card deck I'm currently using is like a Nordic a Nordic card deck. It's the only deck that I own at the moment, and that may stay that way. It may not. But I think that deck has always been uh, it's always been very good for me. It's always been very responsive. Um, I often think that if I stopped getting, a hey stupid card from the deck, I would almost feel like I need a new deck, right? It's very blunt in its message. The other one is copper. I am like copper, like it rules my thoughts. I'm constantly thinking about copper. I got this copper ring that I just fell in love with, and it doesn't fit me, so I gave it to Mom, and it seems to fit her pretty good. So, but I'm glad, like I'm glad it's being worn. I'm glad it's being used. Yeah. So like lapis lazuli has always been a really strong stone for me. I've always been unusually drawn to lapis lazuli, and I think that's just kind of like that esoteric, like wizard, like seeker kind of part of me. Um, Definitely, like that stone has always been very important to me. And then, I have my necklace and it has a bunch of different stones that I'm very, I have a big affinity for. Sometimes I've thought about like making a wand or something with copper and lapis lazuli on it, or maybe like a necklace or a bracelet. I just feel like those elements put together could be really good for me, or at least interesting.
But I just want to say Thank you so much for coming on and being so vulnerable and talking about this. I think it is going to be super beneficial for anybody who's interested in doing this or is questioning it, being able to hear like a firsthand account of it. Just so everybody, if they want to reach out to you and ask any questions about your survival stuff or about booking a Reiki session, where would be the best places people can find you?
For Reiki, violetelements.com. You can book there. I can do distance Reiki or in person Reiki, either one. I'm happy to do both. By all means, please reach out. You can book right on there. Weekends and Mondays right now are kind of my best days. I'm going to expand that. And then on the go Joe, there's a Facebook group. There's on the go Joe 78 at Gmail. If you want to just shoot me an email, by all means, shoot me an email. And then of course my YouTube page. So that's the same, on the go Joe. So any of those places, feel free to get a hold of me. I love feedback, and I also love good conversation. So
Perfect. Mom, would you guys like to talk about a little bit what you guys are doing the end of June? I don't know if this will come out by then or not, but you want to talk about that a little bit, Mom?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Violet Elements and On the Go Joe are partnering up and kind of integrating all of it together. So, the spiritual energy side of things, along with being prepared and their survival skills, and rolling it together and doing some really cool things. So, what Amber's talking about at the end of June is we're doing almost like a retreat style gathering. It will be outdoors. This particular one is going to be in an actual campground. So you'll have like your basic campground amenities and all of that. But we'll be gathering there, doing some training on survival, basic skills, integrating some of the Reiki stuff to it with the violet element. So, and how that would kind of look was if you're in a stressful situation and like what can you do other than how to calm down, like how to calm your breath down, how to calm your heart rate down, like so meditations and body movements, and like how do you stay active and fit if you don't necessarily can't work out or don't have the equipment to work out, so things like that. So it's going to be kind of all of that rolled together. This will be a regular thing that we're doing. So if you missed the one at the end of the June and you have interest in it, please definitely reach out. We have several more throughout the year that is scheduled. And you'll get teaching of, like I said, the basic survival skills and other things from On the Go Joe. And then energy, motivation, meditations from me and Joe as well. Do you have anything you want to add to that, Joe?
I mean, I think that really the overall goal for this is to give people a basic skill set that will help them feel more secure in their self and in their everyday life, while also giving them the chance to not disconnect, but to reconnect to something deeper, to reconnect to, yourself or other people or nature, or maybe just to help you find some perspective. And it's something that's going to be empowering and I think very healing at the same time.
So, is there anything that you want to, any final messages you would like to say to anybody who's watching?
If you're watching this, you were led here for a reason. I'm a big fan of do your own research, so please do your own research. But if you're, I guess everybody has, there could be a million reasons why somebody's thinking of interlife regression, past life regression. One, just know that you're safe, and know that you as a conscious being, like that little spark of divinity that's kind of inside of all of us, right? That you specifically, you're never going to lose that control, right? You're always there. You can always direct the experience if you want to down a certain avenue or path or subject. Don't be scared of that. And the the one thing I can tell you that I learned for sure is don't be scared of yourself. Don't be scared of your higher self. Don't be scared of your inner conscience. Don't be scared of your subconscious. I think that a lot of when people like, especially if you cling really hard to the id theory, which is like basically kind of a belief that points to your subconscious as like your amoral, unethical you kind of thing. And I think that's could be a possibility to a point. Whatever version of yourself or your ancestors or your guides that you run into or experience, like they will be there as long as you want them to be there. So it's your path, right? You may not be walking it physically across Earth, right? You may not be necessarily grounded in your root chakra very well because you tend to you almost travel to a whole different reality. But at the same time, you're absolutely safe. Listen to your intuition. If there's a person that you want to do this with, if there's a person that you really feel strongly would be the best for you to do it with, then do it with them. Knowledge can sometimes be power. Um, Knowledge can also sometimes be used as a reason to hold yourself back. It's really important that you don't do that because you can make a million excuses and reasons why to not do something. If you're looking for more meaning, if you're looking for more proof of the interworkings of reality, on a spiritual sense or an energetic sense, this is definitely the way to do it. Whatever intuitions or gifts you have now or abilities you have now will be stronger afterwards, but that's still not a reason to be scared of it. Being present in your mind and being present in the moment is a very good way to make sure that you maintain control of yourself, regardless of whether you're in a past life regression, intra-life regression, or whether you're like in a crowded room and you've got a screaming child. Being ultra present and being present in your moment and really making the decision to speak and act with intent can bring you a lot of the benefits that an intra-life regression can do. But an intra-life regression is just more direct because you don't have to filter it through the outside world and your the physical reality that we call Earth. So I think it's a really fantastic way of just kind of like defining and carving your own path and figuring out which way to move.
Well, I'm so beyond excited to see you guys coming together and doing this. And I'm excited to hear all about it once you guys have done it. So I just want to say thank you everybody for coming and listening and joining us along on this path today. And I can't wait to see what we're going to talk about next week. So have a great day, everybody. Thank you girls so much. Thank you for walking the path with us. Until next time, stay grounded, stay open, and keep following your light. The views and experiences shared on Citrine Path are for educational, inspirational, and entertainment purposes only and are not intended as medical, psychological, or professional advice.